What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. This is the predictions post for the AEW and New Japan Forbidden Door pay-per-view coming up this Sunday night. So we're going to break down everything that's happening with that currently scheduled card, all of our match outcomes that we think is going to happen, what we're excited about, what we're feeling a little meh about, and everything else that we normally do here with the Pay-Per-View Point stuff. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Callum Wiggins.
Christmas came early, guys.
Did so. Robert E. Felice, what are you getting for Christmas?
I think I'm getting CM Punk and Satoshi Kojima.
It's not even July yet, not even Christmas in July, but we do have a good card coming up here. This is something that already looks like it's got some match of the year candidates, which of course we won't know until it actually happens, but hey, there's the potential, at least for that. There's the potential for this to be the pay-per-view of the year for not even just AEW, but wrestling in general. This is going to be a good one, I think. And of course, as we tell you what we think is going to happen and what we are hyped about, we want to know what you have to say, so drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you are over there on YouTube doing that, make sure you click on all the other good things that are there, like make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Make sure you click the like button on this video. Helps out quite a bit. Ring that little notification bell. That way you get those email alerts when we go live for the post-show review of this immediately following the pay-per-view on Sunday night. And of course, if you want to help out on the monetary side of things, there's a little thanks button that's there. There's the join button, which gives you access to the same tiers that are over there on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/smarkoutmoment, you'll see the same Darkcast and Pick Your Poison and whatnot. Even $1 a month is something that's greatly appreciated. And if you want to pick up some merchandise, go to Redbubble and TeePublic. And then, of course, the fact that you're just listening to this is awesome too. So thank you for that. So let's start getting into this card. Let's talk about the pre-show match, or at least the only pre-show match that's currently announced for right now. They might add more to this pay-per-view. And, there's 10 matches on the current lineup, so there's not a whole lot of room. Oh, actually, there's 11 matches over the course of the past couple hours. They added another one that I hadn't seen. So we're going to talk about 11 matches. That means that I have to add that to my lineup.
Is it all over the place. One they added on Rampage?
Yes, that is true. So then we'll talk about 11 matches. Now that means even less of a chance that there is room for extra matches on the card, but there might be another one added to the pre-show or something. They've done like 15 matches before on AEW events, so it's a possibility. But at least right now, there is a Women's Owen Hart Cup Tournament first round match between Billie Starkz and Athena. I'm not super interested in this match. I don't have any really familiarity with Billie Starkz, so to me, it's just a name. And then Athena is somebody that, yeah, she's good and whatever, but I'm just not really feeling that all that much. But then again, it's a pre-show match, and it's a first round tournament match, so whatever. I'm going to go Athena wins.
Holy shit, let's start here. You can tell that Tony does not watch
ROH.
Any kind of wrestling that he does not have to watch for any given reason, because your assessment of Athena was so throwaway that I'm genuinely surprised. She's having the run of her career.
This is the best that she's looked, but it's still not something where I'm going to be like, oh my God, Athena versus Billie Starkz, because I don't know Billie Starkz. So
Billie Starkz is the 18-year-old prodigy, I believe. Depending on where she's from, just graduated high school or is about to graduate high school. I think this will be a great match. But there's a part of me that sees Billie winning this and setting up for a future Ring of Honor Women's Championship match. And at the very least, setting up Billie Starkz getting an all-elite graphic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this match. I'd say any match that has Athena in at the moment, I'm super interested in. I don't know whether this would end up leading to a ROH title shot if Billie was to get the victory, because she's very much in a heated feud with Kiera Hogan right now on Ring of Honor. So,
but isn't that the blow off for that's tonight?
Oh, is it tonight that they're blown off? But okay, so maybe then they'll have that result either way sorted. But they have been trying to treat that as if like Kiera Hogan has an actually serious chance of winning that title, but I doubt that's going to be the case. But I would say that it's probably a good idea to have Athena get the victory. Would be a strong possibility to win the Owen Hart's tournament overall. But yeah, she's doing great stuff in Ring of Honor, and from what I've seen of Billie Starkz, which admittedly is not very much, I think she definitely has a lot of raw talent behind her. I saw the match that she had with Jade Cargill at Battle of the Belts, and she looked good in that, she looked better than Jade did. I'll say that. So I hope that they put together a good match. But say it's just a pre-show thing. It's nice to see the Owen Hart Cup get started here, but yeah, at least it'll make it somewhat entertaining on the pre-show, and it won't just be RJ City making puns.
Now, between the two of them, whoever wins goes on to fight whoever wins between Nyla Rose and Willow Nightingale on the tournament bracket that we've currently got going on. That happens this Saturday at Collision, so we don't know. Like we know who wins one of the halves of the other side of the bracket from the Rampage spoilers. So that kind of makes me go, I think that it's Athena versus Willow Nightingale, more so than Billie versus Nyla, or Billie versus Willow, or for that matter, Athena versus Nyla. Just seems like it makes a little bit more sense for me to be Willow against Athena, and maybe a push more towards Willow winning this, but we'll talk a little bit more about the tournament brackets and how that's all going to play out a little bit later.
Yeah,
but
I mean, when you factor that in, I can see, as I look at the brackets now, I can see Willow going to at least the finals of this thing. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. I like the women's lineup this
year. Yeah, obviously we'll talk about it in more detail as results come in, but like just at this moment in time, knowing what I know, I'm 100% Sky Blue's winning that tournament.
Really?
Yeah, she's getting pushed really heavily, and she's doing a good job. I think she needs something now to cement that.
I had it going down to Ruby and
Willow. That's what I was thinking, was Ruby and Willow. But I mean, if Sky Blue is their priority here, then it could very easily be Sky Blue versus Athena in the finals.
Yeah.
Sky Blue is in the opening for Collision, which I think is a good move because she deserves it.
Well, that's at least one part of this, but another tournament match, but for the men's, is something that Rob mentioned earlier. It's CM Punk against Satoshi Kojima. Do you guys get the sense that this is a replacement thing for the Kenta thing, or do you think that there wasn't really a whole lot to the Kenta story to begin with, or was this planned from the start? How are you guys assessing this?
Based on every report that's out there, yeah, it was supposed to be Kenta versus CM Punk, but Kenta said no. And
wonder if that's because he was supposed to lose then and he didn't want to.
Oh, he definitely would have lost. Like they wouldn't have had CM Punk go out in the first round of this tournament. But
I don't think that if that was the case, I don't think that would have necessarily been a tournament match. Because they didn't bother to put out the bracket until after this. So I'm kind of thinking that this is like, all right, well, we can't do the Kenta thing, so let's just do the tournament match and just, whatever. Because they could have just done the tournament match on Collision or Dynamite or something.
I'm pretty sure it would have been a tournament match because it gives a good reason to just put those two together with no build, really. Just, okay, we'll just Kenta and CM Punk are facing each other because they're in the first round of this tournament. It's like, okay, that's cool. I mean, that's the only reason this match is happening, because it's the first round tournament and it's a AEW guy versus a New Japan guy. But I'm still pumped about this match. Kojima is definitely not the Kojima of the 2000s. He's definitely in the old man category that you find the likes of like Hiroshi Tenzan and Togi Makabe, the people that are just there to usually be in the like opening tag team matches alongside the Young Lions that don't really amount to anything. Although Kojima, I believe, was the All Japan champion not too long ago. I think like only like a couple of months ago. So, oh no, it was the Noah. He won the GHC championship. So So he's held that recently. So he has been a world champion in smaller Japanese promotions very recently, and he's a very good talent and will definitely put on a good match with CM Punk. It's just not as exciting as the potential for the Kenta thing, just simply because it would have been GTS versus GTS. So, but I'm still looking forward to it, and Punk's obviously going to win. So,
yeah, there's no way in hell that they're going to have Punk lose already.
I mean, if we just look at who he's bound to face, they're gonna give us Punk and Joe in the Owen Hart tournament, which I think is great. Like, that's awesome. And even if Joe didn't win and it was Punk and Roddy, I would love that just as much. You know, I'm a little surprised to see him taking on a pay-per-view match in just a, hey, by the way, it's CM Punk and Satoshi Kojima. But I'm so happy he's in the Owen, because I feel like this is for him. It's just, appreciating wrestling, the love of wrestling, you get to honor Owen Hart. It's a pretty cool move, and I expect CM Punk to go quite far in this tournament.
He is a potential winner, I think. It wouldn't shock me if Ricky Starks won and beat Samoa Joe, but I'm leaning more towards CM Punk beats Powerhouse Hobbs. Again, we'll come back to that a little bit later. So the match that was added from the Rampage, spoilers, which I don't think is really spoiling all that much or whatever, but something that I didn't know until just checking it right now. Tom Lawler against Adam Cole. I don't think I've seen a single Tom Lawler match, so I know almost absolutely nothing about him, but I've heard good things. So, my level of excitement is, a little bit above the normal, because it's kind of like, all right, I want to get to see this guy for pretty much the first time, and I like Adam Cole, so cool. I'll go with Adam Cole wins. I have no means to dissect this whatsoever.
I would love for Tom Lawler to get a graphic here. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's what everybody who wants to do the MMA and wrestling, he does it perfectly, and this is a wonderful surprise and one of the matches I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tom Lawler's presence, and he's got a lot of charisma, and I think he demonstrates that both in the ring and on the microphone. And Adam Cole, like, if you'd asked me this like a couple of weeks ago, I'd be a little bit, I'm not unsure about the match in general, but a little bit, okay, Cole's not caught fire yet since his comeback, so I'm sure it'll be a good match, but nothing great. Since the Cole MJF stuff has started and really caught fire, now I'm really looking forward to this. It seems like it's a slam dunk that Cole wins, because you don't want the guy that's probably going to be challenging for the world title very soon to just face a random defeat, even in a cross-promotional pay-per-view without any stakes attached to it. But I think that Tom Lawler can obviously take the loss here. I don't think Lawler's not involved in the G1, so he's not doing anything in New Japan proper for a while anyway. I'll probably be just concentrating on stuff in Strong for the time being. But it's going to be a really good match, and Cole gets the victory. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Adam Cole wins, if I didn't say that.
So then let's switch over to something that I am actually like, oh man, this is going to be really good. And I don't 100% feel like I know who's going to win. I am still leaning in one direction, but it's kind of up in the air all the time, which is the AEW International Championship match. It's a 4-way between Orange Cassidy, Daniel Garcia, Katsuyori Shibata, and Zack Sabre Jr. I had thought originally that we were going to get just Orange Cassidy against Zack Sabre Jr. And by throwing in Shibata and Garcia, that makes me kind of lean more towards, okay, probably somebody like Garcia is taking the pin and Orange Cassidy is going to retain. And we might revisit Cassidy versus Zack Sabre Jr. just on an episode of Collision or Dynamite or something. But I still always go, I don't know. I mean, Orange Cassidy could lose that belt. I think that he probably will lose it in a singles match more so. But you put these 4 guys together, there's pretty much no way that this match isn't going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this a lot.
I think this will be one of the most fun matches on the show. I It doesn't have to be here, I guess, but I would like to see Zack Sabre Jr. come away with that belt. And I'm going to guess that he wins it here. And if he doesn't, I'm going to guess he's the one that wins it anyway at some point.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. Every Orange Cassidy match nowadays is like a must-watch match, and then you throw in Zack Sabre Jr. and Shibata and Garcia, and they're just 4 guys that just work perfectly. And as demonstrated by the tag match they had on Dynamite, they've got good chemistry between all of them. It does kind of feel a bit interesting that there are 3 champions involved in this match and only 1 title is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like, you're not exactly going to put all 3 titles on one guy unless you're going to do something super special with it. And I don't think they probably want to tie one person up with all that gold. But I think that the likelihood is that we see Orange Cassidy retain here. I think we see something in this match which will lead to Garcia versus Shibata 1-on-1 at Ring of Honor's next show for the Pure Championship. And then you might do some other thing on maybe on if you're a Collision or a Dynamite of Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy for the Television Championship that Zack Sabre Jr. wins and retains the title. But I'm going to say that Orange Cassidy gets the victory here and keeps holding the title for a little while longer.
Maybe something like Garcia has Shibata dead to rights and Cassidy hits him with the orange punch and then pins Shibata or something. So that way it might be more like, all right, Garcia's like, hey, I have every reason to challenge Shibata because I could have pinned you. And then, AEW does things a little differently from WWE. So, of course, that booking mentality sometimes just doesn't work. Sometimes it's just like, all right, Orange Cassidy will pin Zack Sabre Jr. and that's the end of it. They do more straight up finishes, which can be very refreshing instead of just trying to book your way ass backwards and, get around everything with constant interference and constant distractions and all. But I do think that that's going to be something that plays into at least one of the matches that is here. I think that there's like 3 matches that's going to have this, some kind of like distraction type thing. So we'll come around to them. Were you going to ask?
I was going to say, do you think that one of the participants in this match is going to suffer a leg injury, which means that they put onto a stretcher while the crowd boo them when they're supposed to be babyface?
Oh my fucking god! That was
I don't watch NXT because it sucks, but I specifically saw all the buzz on Twitter about that, and so I had to check out that match. Got worst match of the year already on my thing right now. That is top of my list now for worst match of the year.
That poor Dana Brooke, man.
They clearly did not give 2 shits about Dana Brooke, but
no, that seems to be the case perpetually. I don't give 2 shits about Toni Storm versus Willow Nightingale, which is a shame because I like Toni Storm and I like Willow Nightingale, but I am so goddamn sick of the same people feuding, so I've said it a million times. Whatever, Toni Storm retains.
I'm pumped for this, mainly because I think the Outcast stuff has gotten really good over the last month or so. I know you've tapped out on him, and honestly, it's actually probably fair enough because the stuff they were doing several months ago was just rinse and repeat, and there is still an aspect of that now, but now it's fully focused on just Toni Storm and Ruby Soho wrestling more often. It's just, okay, these 2 are great wrestlers, and Toni looks so much more confident, and
Thank you.
She's got much more of a voice.
I'm just undercutting by saying that you were complimenting me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, don't get ahead of yourself. But she seems like she has more of a voice and she's cutting better promos. I think that since she became the champion, there's a bit more of a swagger about her. And Willow Nightingale's just a perfect baby face to go up against her. She's got a lot of power. You can almost string this as a AEW versus New Japan thing because Willow Nightingale is New Japan Strong Women's Champion, even though they're both AEW contracted wrestlers. So there's still that little bit of a interesting edge to it. It's quite obvious that Toni Storm retained because, at least in my logic, it's going to be Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter at All In in Wembley Stadium for the women's title, where you see Jamie Hayter get the title back. But it should still be a lot of fun nonetheless. These two are really good wrestlers, and I think it might be one of the best women's matches we see all year.
Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. I think they are situating it like, since she's the strong openweight champion, that she's a New Japan representative. I know Tony Khan talked about hoping that one day Stardom competitors will be able to make it for this show. I expect a good match here. I understand Tony's sentiment about these people have been fighting each other forever, but I still think it'll be great. And I think everybody's really leveled up their games since this started, so it doesn't feel as played out as it would have months ago.
It is a little shame that now this is the second year in a row that it seems like the women's division is pretty much in-house. Yeah. As opposed to it being like, I mean, if things would have gone down a little bit differently, they probably would have had Mercedes in here, and it probably would have been her against either Toni Storm or Jade Cargill or somebody. I don't know. But it's like, man, another year of, well, you can kind of call Willow the New Japan person, even though she's been wrestling more on AEW and ROH than New Japan in general. And you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, in theory, it might play out, but it's not really.
It's the unfortunate circumstance of the fact that AEW has their relationship with New Japan. They don't have the relationship with Stardom, and even though they're both owned by the same parent company, they both have separate bookers, they both have separate mentalities, and so you can't just equate one and assume that the other's just going to immediately follow. Stardom has a show booked on the same day as Forbidden Door, and so they've booked a lot of their top names for it, and that means it would have always been difficult and pretty much impossible as soon as they announced that card was going to take place. Like, the only woman that New Japan has contracted to them is Mercedes Moné.
Yeah.
And so that probably would have been the result. But until there is the forging of a very specific agreement between Stardom and AEW in future, then this is just, unfortunately, what you're going to have to get for the women's thing. It's either this or you get no women's match at all. And you can't really do that in this day and age.
Yeah.
I do wish that there was more of a move to make it, okay, Forbidden Door is like an all promotions kind of event. I know that it's very special with the New Japan stuff, but if you could get, DDT or Tokyo Joshi Pro or even Impact, there would still be a Forbidden Door feeling as opposed to this where it's just in-house. It would still be really good.
Or even if they would have just done something like it's Toni Storm versus Willow, and they're kind of treating Willow as like the New Japan representative, and then you throw in Trinity and be like, oh, then, the Forbidden Door's even opened up to Impact now, and like it's a 3-way, so we got the New Japan and AEW and Impact. Whoa, like maybe even something like that just to spice it up a little bit. But instead, it's just sort of, we've seen Toni Storm versus Willow Nightingale before. It's a bigger stage at this point. Willow has been advancing her career quite a bit in the past few months, like, leveling up each and every month. And now it's a bigger deal. It's just, for somebody like me, I'm like, all right, well, Willow's not going to win, and I've seen the match. Whatever. Kind of like, this will be the match that if I need to kind of go off and, finish cooking dinner or something at the time, then I'll probably do it during this match. Or at least depending on when they put, if this is going on at 11:30 at night, then obviously that's not going to be the case. But not super duper into that, but I am excited for instance, let's talk about one of the main title matches that's going on here, because eventually they're going to spread these out. It's not like going to be the final 4 matches are just the quote unquote top 4 build matches. Let's talk about MJF versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. This is a match that, again, I can't speak to the New Japan side of being like, super familiar with Tanahashi. I've seen a few of his matches. I've enjoyed what I've seen from him. I know that he's capable and everything, but I can't be like, okay, here are his 5 signature moves and what order, and this is the entire history of his belt, any of that kind of stuff. But it does seem like he is a good pick to go up against MJF. And we were talking about this before. I forget what podcast we were on. It was probably the Hot Tags or so. But we were talking about the idea of giving somebody to MJF that he can beat, where New Japan would be okay with it. Tanahashi kind of fills that role a little bit as, an established major player and a real solid New Japan representative where MJF beats him and it's kind of a slap in the face, but it's also he beats a major champion. And I think this is going to be a really, really good segment with MJF retaining, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be a great match. And I like that they brought it back around to having MJF actually accept the match. Get Adam Cole goaded him into it. We mentioned this before, but Tanahashi is the perfect guy. It's funny that you mentioned his signature moves because basically the style that he wrestles now, kind of like just play the hits, you know? And it'll be a really fun match for MJF. And again, like I said, when this was announced, it dispels the whole MJF will never work Forbidden Door argument.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very kind of old school in their approach to this one because Tanahashi is an all-time legend of New Japan, probably like him and Okada, at least in the modern era, are the two greatest wrestlers New Japan's ever had. And I think that, but his limitations are now that he's significantly older than he was, and his knees are pretty much non-existent now. He's like, he can get it going in the ring, but just like you don't know how much time he has left, at least very much at the top of the card. But he's the perfect choice for this match because he is Mr. New Japan, and MJF thinks that New Japan is a glorified Japanese independent. And so they've got the perfect contrasting ideologies to go against each other for this. So I'm very much looking forward to how they put this together. I think it's going to be a lot of MJF like shtick work in between the actual action taking place, and Tanahashi will play the hits and he'll try and hit a high fly flow to the outside onto MJF. He'll sell it great, and MJF will probably cheat to win to a degree, but it will be a bit more dominant than his usual wins because Tanahashi can take a loss against the AEW World Champion without any problem whatsoever. So yeah, looking forward to it. I think it's going to be different than some of the other top matches that we have on the card just because of the style that they're going to work this. But I think that'll be a nice change of pace from some of the more dynamic, like
high flying
matches that we'll see. Yeah,
strike for strike type things that they normally do. Yeah, I think it's going to be a completely different match than, for instance, Sanada against Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Just knowing Jungle Boy's style versus MJF's even. And of course, you know, I, again, don't know too much about Sanada. I know less about Sanada than I do about Tanahashi, so I can't really talk about his style. But I would assume we're in another situation where the champion's going to retain. Sanada, of course, is not going to lose his belt to Jack Perry right here. And the story of Jack Perry trying to get a singles championship is going to be continued with the idea of him failing it again. So that's going to be an element to this. But I am assuming that between the two, it's going to be more like the Tanahashi MJF match will be more WWE style, I guess you would say. And the Jack Perry Sanada match will be more AEW and New Japan, like move based and in its own way, a really good match. I enjoy pretty much every Jack Perry match. So that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. And I'm interested to see what Sanada's up to because, again, I don't know. So I think this is going to be a win for Sanada. I think this is going to be another good segment too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody here is going to say Jack Perry is going to be the IWGP World Champion.
Maybe Barry will.
But I don't like that Sanada was in an interview, even if he is just building the match. Just like, yeah, I have no idea who Jack Perry is. I was kind of hoping for someone bigger than that. This is the IWGP World title after all. It's like, all right, well, I know he's losing, but you don't have to make it that obvious. No?
Could just be like, yeah, he's a young upstart and he's going to give me a challenge. But is Sanada like a babyface right now? Or, I mean, there's not really quite the same dynamics, but is he
He's
sort of?
He's got 5 guys. I guess he's got 4 guys. He's the 5th guy.
Yeah, so they don't have the same sort of style. Like in certain matches, he'll be the babyface. Certain matches, he'll be the heel. The Just 5 Guys is kind of a middling group that just adapts to whoever his opponent is or who their opponents are.
They're just 5 tweeners.
Yeah, essentially, realistically. I mean, against I mean, his most recent two matches, his most recent two title defenses against Hiromu Takahashi and Yota Tsuji, he was definitely the heel for both of those. And presumably he'll be heel here because even though Forbidden Door is a joint show, it's kind of seen as like AEW soil. So I assume that Jungle Boy will be... It's weird though, because it's Canada. It's the Canada aspect in it. And Canada can be a little bit like, as Jerry Lawler would often describe, a bit of a crazy town for
we might see Canada for Sanada.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Plenty things. Yeah. Just ask my wife.
So they might be leaning into the whole, because we all are of the opinion, and it feels quite clear that Jungle Boy's turning heel, so they might play into that narrative by deciding to go with Sanada instead, especially if they do throw in a few Jungle Boy heel antics in his desperation to finally win a title for himself. It was quite funny is the fact that there was that stat going around that Luchasaurus hasn't wrestled since the match that he had with Jungle Boy at that steel cage match that he had with him. Can't remember when that was. It was Full Gear, yeah. And his first match back, he wins a wins a title, and Jack Perry still hasn't got one. So even the dinosaur has a singles gold before Jack Perry could. But yeah, he won't win this one. Sanada's going into the G1 as world champion, so that's the way it's going to be. And this will just further the long-term storytelling, which will eventually lead with Jack Perry holding the FTW title instead.
Probably. I'm kind of on board with what you were talking about with him beating Hook and turning heel that way.
Because that is the other part of it. He wants Hook in this point.
Oh yeah, Hook's in his corner for this one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that I agree with you that this match is going to be more of the, I wouldn't necessarily define it as the AEW New Japan style, but this is two people that have to work because fundamentally they're not over enough as stars, neither of them, to be able to, I don't want to say like sleepwalk their way through. I'm sure MJF and Tanahashi won't do that, but they can do more playing to the crowd because they've got a huge amount of credibility and the crowd gets behind them. If they're just, like stomping their feet or anything like that, they'll be clapping along, whereas these two have to work to get people's attention. So I'm sure they'll deliver a high action match because of that.
In an era of like, say, pre-brand split type WWE where they would have the one world championship and the one intercontinental championship, if this were a combined promotion and this card was the way that it was, Sanada versus Jack Perry would be the Intercontinental title match, not MJF Tanahashi. Let's put it that way. So, two champions stay the same like that. The championship I do think is going to change hands, though, is Will Ospreay beating Kenny Omega for the IWGP United States Heavyweight title. I think Don Callis is going to get involved here. He's going to screw over Kenny Omega. It's going to be a way to set up a rubber match between them because Kenny Omega beats Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay beats Kenny Omega. Then we come back around to it and kind of address the idea of who's the real winner of the two. And of course, the way that these matches go and the way that Ospreay goes and Kenny Omega goes and all, there's pretty much no way that this match isn't great.
They had a match of the year already. Can they top it?
There's a chance.
There's going to be a lot of scuttlebutt here, so I don't know, because you got Callis and everything going on with that. But I am expecting one of the best matches of the year because Omega knows that he doesn't have much, not that he doesn't have much time left, but the clock is ticking and he's got more years behind him than he does in front of him. And I think he wants to make everything mean something. And Ospreay's probably a contender for best in the world. This should be damn good. And yeah, Ospreay's got to win.
I think, obviously, just because of the match they had at not Forbidden Door, at Wrestle Kingdom, which is by a distance my favourite match of the year so far, I only hope that they build upon that and there's some nice story beats between that match and this match that they can play off of. I think the difference is that in that match, they really played it up as Ospreay was babyface and Omega was heel. In this one, Ospreay's just spent his entire promo time leading up to this saying that Canada sucks. that nothing good comes from Canada, basically saying that Bret Hart is a dick as well and all that stuff. So I think that, they're fully putting the fact of Kenny Omega is from Canada. He's going to get the babyface treatment, and so Ospreay's going to work this heel and presumably a more vicious style. Like Omega made Ospreay bleed in that match. I imagine that Ospreay's going to make Omega bleed in this one to kind of balance that up. I am not fully convinced Ospreay's going to win the title here because there's going to be a third match, and that's probably going to happen at Wrestle Kingdom again. I know a lot of people saying that's going to happen at All In, but I think it's a New Japan title, and it's a big feud, and so they would want it to be on their big show, which I think is fair enough.
Yeah, I think that we're going to get maybe some kind of a confrontation between the two at All In, but it's going to be a tag match or something.
You could definitely do that instead.
Well, see, it's hard to say because there's so many things going on right now for the Elite. They still have, BCC stuff. They still have whatever this Punk stuff will be. So,
and there's not only All In, but there's All Out, which we still don't know 100% what's going on there. But if it is going to be the week after,
tickets tomorrow or not tomorrow, Sunday
might be, and it could be the week after. They could just kind of treat it as like, look, we're just gonna try to build two cards at the same time, and half's gonna be on one, half's the other gonna be on the other. It could be a matter of kind of like this one where it's like we're just announcing matches. Like there's no setup between Punk and Kojima. It's just sort of here you go. So they might do that for All In or for All Out for all that matter. I don't know. They might do a 50-50, whatever it might be. But I think that Omega Ospreay 3 isn't going to happen outside of New Japan. Yeah.
I'm not 100% convinced that Ospreay gets the victory here. I think that, and maybe it's just that I'm playing into this being you're trying to go with an epic series, the likes of Omega versus Okada. In their second match, it ended in a time limit draw. And I think it would be surprising considering how big the card is and how many matches you're trying to get through. But I would not say no to 60 minutes of Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay if they decided to go that route and have nobody be the outright victor. Especially because I think this is main event in the show anyway. So realistically, as long as you've got the building booked out, you can make this as long as you want. So,
yeah, I don't think this is going to be the main event. I think it's going to be Danielson Okada.
Oh, they already confirmed that. They already confirmed Danielson Okada.
Well, that's the main event of the show.
Yes.
Okay.
They confirmed that last night on that.
Now, to factor in the idea of like, how do they play around with that? I think Don Callis is going to screw Kenny Omega. He's going to lose here. But I think that to balance it out, the Elite's going to beat the Blackpool Combat Club in their 10-man tag team match. And for those who, trying to learn the card through us, it's Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, and Konosuke Takeshita and Shota Umino against the Elite's Hangman Adam Page, the Young Bucks, and they also have Eddie Kingston by their side, and then he picked their extra member, and that's Ishii. This match doesn't feel to me like it's going to be as good as Anarchy in the Arena, but it's a good group of people, so it's not like I'm going to be like poo-pooing all over it, But I think Blackpool Combat Club's been getting a lot of like either real victories or at least pseudo victories, like the winning a beatdown in the ring or something. So I think Omega loses, but the Elite wins on that side.
Yeah, I don't know. Because to me, the BCC feels like the more cohesive unit going into this match. Kingston only cares about fighting Claudio. I feel like that is going to be his downfall. And then he'll eventually get added to the eventual Blood and Guts. And that's where they'll have maybe Shota by their side on fantasy. And that's where they can get the win on the heels.
That's where what? You kind of cut out there.
That's where they can get the win on the heels.
Yeah.
But I see the BCC winning here because they're more cohesive. They've got Takeshita who could use a big win. Shota could definitely use a big win. And I think it would be a good move.
Yeah, it's obviously could go either way because there's no real heavy stakes in this match in terms of one side has to win over the other. But at the moment, I'm leaning more towards BCC winning, primarily because of Takeshita. I think having Takeshita get a victory over Ishii or one of the Bucks in this match makes a lot of sense. You're going to be building to an eventual match between Takeshita and Kenny Omega 1-on-1. So I think him scoring the victory in this big match with a lot of big names in it would be a good way of cementing him as, okay, this is the guy that we're going to be building towards moving forward, and part of that journey is he's going to be fighting Omega 1-on-1 at an all-in or an all-out.
I'm kind of thinking we're going to get Ospreay and Takeshita against Omega and somebody.
And Ibushi.
Maybe Ibushi, yeah. And to do that at All-In, and then Takeshita against Omega at All Out. That's the way that I'm kind of looking at it.
And it doesn't necessarily, it's not like he needs to win this one, but I think that he's the one that they're putting a lot of eggs in the basket now. They're giving him the wins that he wasn't getting prior to joining up with Don Callis. And so if you really want to build him up to that point, then you give him a victory here. And basically anyone on the Elite side, I think outside of Page, can take a pinfall. I think that Kingston and Claudio will probably just brawl at the start, and they'll brawl for a while in the match as well, but they'll eventually just both fight their way out of the arena, because that's clearly the main event of the next Ring of Honor show, is the rematch between those two, where you finally crown Kingston as the Ring of Honor World Champion. But
that's why I kind of think that Kingston might get the pin for the team, and that might be the reason why he's able to be like, all right, well, thanks for joining us, and that's your element to be here, and you earned a title shot by proxy of getting along with them, kind of. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's definitely, as I say, that it's very, very close between whoever wins this one, because I think they both have people that could merit a victory, and they have people on their teams that could take the pinfall. Like, if you do want to go with Kingston, you could have him pin Claudio, and then that's the obvious route to him getting that title shot. Willie U's obviously there to take pinfalls for the most part. Umino can take it as well. Yuta's fine, because you pinned Kenny Omega at the last pay-per-view, so he's kind of protected for a while at this point. But the Elite, both of the Jacksons can take pins. Ishii can take a pin. Like, the only one you probably need to protect on that side completely is Page, because Page should be a challenger down the line for MJF's title. So, so it's very hard to predict one way or the other, and that actually makes it somewhat exciting, because a lot of these matches, they seem to have a bit of a clear direction to them, which is fair enough, because you're not going to have Tanahashi and Jungle Boy Jack Perry with holding both titles at the end of the show. But this one, you have an element of, I don't know who's going to win, and they can make it make sense either way.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if it's even something that doesn't seem like it's got a whole lot of pizzazz to it. Like, if it's just Nick Jackson pins Umino, and you're just sort of like, oh, all right, well, whatever, or Ishii pins Yuta, or Moxley pins.
He wouldn't be getting a pin.
Maybe not, but it wouldn't shock me if Moxley pins Kingston, and they set up something between those two. Or if Claudio pins Kingston to rule out the idea of doing an ROH thing. Like, they've got some ideas that they can play around with here. It all depends on what they're going to do going forward. And then that's the type of thing that we'll look back in hindsight and be like, oh, okay, well, if they were going to go with like the Kingston and Claudio thing, then yeah, it's pretty obvious that they went in this direction. Or if their whole plan is to set up something more with Takeshita, and they would just want to have him pin Ishii or what, I don't know. Like, they can play around with it, because it's not like there's really anything on the line here. So I'm going to go with the Elite. What was your ultimate picks?
I'm going BCC.
Yeah, I'm going BCC as well.
If I had to pick, I'd say Takeshita pins Ishii.
So one thing that we don't know on this card is who's going to be teaming with Darby Allin and Sting to go up against Les Suzuki Gods. That's Minoru Suzuki, Sammy Guevara, and Chris Jericho, who are apparently undefeated. They keep talking about that on Dynamite this week.
They've had 2 matches.
Yeah, which I think is funny.
They have won both of them, so they are undefeated.
Yeah, it's just a fun way to be like, see, they're undefeated. They're so great. I think it doesn't even matter who is teaming with Sting and Darby Allin. Sting and Darby Allin and blank are going to beat Jericho, Guevara, and Suzuki, because Guevara and Jericho are going to have some kind of miscommunication, and then maybe Sting pins Jericho and we get something. I don't know. It depends on what they're playing on, again, going forward with whatever they do with All In, whatever they do with All Out. If they're going to continue this whole Sting and Jericho thing, maybe they have like a singles match planned in the future, but it doesn't seem like Sting is really doing that. I think we're getting Sammy Guevara.
Matches, but I think he could make an exception. Jericho.
Could be, just for the sake of being like, look, this is the only opportunity that you're going to get to really do it. I think we're getting Guevara, Jericho at All Out as opposed to All In. So this could be a good means to set that up a little bit, with just Guevara either walks out on the match or he gets like slapped by Jericho and then rolled up and, you're not following my lead and then now you lost the match, whatever it might be. I think that it's Guevara or Jericho taking the pin, and it's Sting, Darby Allin, and blank beating them.
First of all, for anyone who's worried that blank might be Goldberg, Tony Khan said on a media call today that he doesn't think that Goldberg would fit in too well with Sting and Darby. So you're concerned.
I didn't even think about that idea. I don't really have anybody in mind that you think it's Naito?
Right? Like, Jericho's made a lot of
enemies.
Naito's
the obvious choice, yeah.
I mean, he
Jericho
is missing.
Enemies all the way.
He is missing from this card, and he is one of the most prominent New Japan people, so that would make sense.
So he unfortunately, and it makes sense for multiple reasons, because he unfortunately had to miss the last Forbidden Door, I think due to I don't know if it's like injury or COVID related stuff, but I believe he was supposed to be teaming up with Darby and Sting for the original match. Well, I don't know if it's him. It was definitely LIJ though, because it was meant to be Hiromu was involved in that, because they was originally supposed to be a 4-on-4 match between the Bucks and El Phantasmo and someone else against Sting, Darby Allin. I think it was Shingo and Hiromu. So it clearly demonstrates that Sting and Darby Allin have at least a working relationship with LIJ. And so you go with the leader of LIJ, a guy who feuded with Chris Jericho multiple times over the Intercontinental Championship back in New Japan. So, obvious choice, big names. Probably the last top level name that New Japan had that isn't on this card. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they do, and the obvious implosion of, or at least the start of the implosion between Jericho and Guevara here. Realistically, I just want to see Jericho tap out to the Scorpion Death Drop. The Scorpion Deathlock, that would be cool.
Yeah, that needs to happen. I'm so excited about Jericho and Sting. I know. Look, I know they're both old and it's past their time to do it, but I'm glad it's getting done, and I'm very happy about it.
And there's a good chance that is the finish of the match, because it is in Canada. So even though it's not the sharpshooter in the same way, because it's, obviously Sting doesn't call it the sharpshooter, that'll get a pop. I mean, it would get a pop anywhere because it's Sting putting that on Jericho. But it'll get even more of a pop of it being like, that's that move, But I think that's pretty signed, sealed, and delivered that Sting's group's going to win that match. Which leads us to the only match left to talk about, which is the main event. Kazuchika Okada against Bryan Danielson. And what is there to say that we haven't already said? This match is going to be great.
This is one of those times where, as much as I hate the cheesy phrasing of the fans win, this is a time where it's appropriate. Like, the fans win here. We weren't supposed to get this match. Bryan was retired. Even when he wasn't, he was with WWE. We're finally getting this match. It's going to be great. I think Okada will likely win.
I'm going with Okada as well.
I've seen Bryan Danielson be willing to put over Drew Gulak, so surely he's got no problem losing to Okada. Gonna be maybe the match of the year. I'm trying not to hype myself up too much, but how can you not assume you're going to see a match of the year candidate with these two?
Don't suck.
Yeah,
No.
it's one of the. It's one of those dream matches that you never thought you were going to see, and now you finally get to witness it. Like outside of the obvious dream match that I've always wanted between Bryan Danielson and Kurt Angle, which unfortunately can never happen, or at least not to the quality that you would hope it to be. This is pretty high up on the totem pole for other opponents that Danielson can have an excellent match with, and Okada, when he's Okada and he's like doing his best stuff, is one of, if not the best wrestler in the world. He adapts so perfectly to any other wrestler style, and honestly, like Danielson does that as well. So they both are great like wrestling chameleons in terms of if there's a guy that works a certain style, they will fit into that style and make it and be as good, if not better, than the guy that they're working against. So putting those two against each other, you can only assume is going to be just absolute. I don't know, it's like the wrestling equivalent to great poetry or a great play going on, and just like the ebbs and flows. It will just, yeah, I can't begin to think about how great this could be, because that could definitely lead to potential disappointment if something does go wrong, because things can go wrong. Like, we were supposed to see Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. last year, and we couldn't because one of them got injured. And they've been very, very careful to. Danielson has not wrestled since the Anarchy in the Arena match. So they've been very careful. Like, you are going to be wrestling this match, but we're making sure that you're healthy for this. I think that Okada should win. I think it just makes sense to. He's as pretty much Danielson's MO is lose to guy. That's like have great match, lose match. That's his his approach to things mostly. And I think that he doesn't need the victory here. Okada is about to go into the G1. There's every likelihood that he could win the G1 or go into Wrestle Kingdom as champion, or be fighting for the title at Wrestle Kingdom. So yeah, it just makes sense for him to get the victory. It gives New Japan, especially if it's the closing theme, the last kind of bragging rights over it, which I think is fine. There's going to be a lot of AEW guys winning on the show. So to have the top New Japan guy stand tall at the end of it just makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing what magic these two can weave with each other.
This is the type of thing that it speaks for itself. You know, it's gonna, whatever time limit that they give it, whatever they end up doing when it comes to how they get to the finish, which I do think that Okada's going to win just because he is like he's positioned as a bigger person in New Japan than it is for Bryan Danielson. As long as they go out there and they just have the match, it's going to work out. It's not, a WWE situation where we've talked about in the past where, they've done such a poor job building up the hype for this, and then they're just banking on the idea that this is going to be good and that might not work out. We're pretty sure that this is going to be a great match, and the hype has only existed in a theoretical dream match thing. It's not something that they are waiting 3 months to try to build like for certain WrestleMania matches and all. So they don't have that albatross over them, and they've got a better track record. So I expect this to be a really, really good match of the year candidate, and something that if I'm in the WWE and I'm looking at the follow-up of next week being Money in the Bank, I'm getting a little nervous that it's like, how are we going to top this match, let alone the rest of the card? Because overall, this looks like a really good card. And it might be the card that I'm the most excited about from AEW in the past like year or so, which is weird because I'm not a New Japan guy. So I don't know. It just seems like it's pure potential to me. So I'm really looking forward to it for this Sunday. And of course, if you are, then you should be joining us with the Smark Out Moment coverage. You should be checking out the post show immediately following this pay-per-view, where we'll talk about everything that went down, talk about the positives, the negatives, all that good stuff. And of course, continue clicking around on Smark Out Moment. Follow everything that you can see there. Go over to the sister brand of fanboysanonymous.com and check out everything on the blue brand. Go to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Patreon and all over there from Fanboys Anonymous. Make sure you are paying attention to things like the Blueprint Project, because coming up soon, actually tomorrow, I think I might publish it, because the video's done. So it's a matter of just when do I want to premiere the video. Will be the 5th and final chapter of at least the YouTube series for the Batman A Nighttime Story 100 Records from the Wayne Foundation Archives. That is currently my favorite video out of the bunch, and possibly my favorite thing that I've done on Fanboys Anonymous. So a little bit of hype for that one. If you're a Batman fan, you definitely want to check that out. And of course, go around and click on all the other things that you can find over there over on the link tree that I've got on amangotree.com or anthonymango.com. Same exact thing. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, whatever it might be. You can find the Smark Out Moment stuff. You can find the Fanboys Anonymous stuff. You can find my personal stuff over there at Tony Mango, which my sister sent me a joke the other day that I was like, yeah, this applies. It was, what do you call a man with no shins? Tony. I was like, yep, the math checks out. So if you're following all my stuff, make sure that you are also following Rob and Callum.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. Check out my writing on Fightful and WrestleZone, and check out what Callum's got going on.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the power rankings over on the Smark Out My own website, where I rank the WWE superstars every week. And then there is also the Fantasy League. Obviously, nothing that will be based on the results of this show, but keep following that to see how our WWE-based teams are performing against each other over at WWEFantasyLeague.com.
And that's going to do us in for the prediction side of AEW New Japan Presents Forbidden Door 2023. Of course, we will also have another podcast coming up tomorrow for the hot tags, where we talk about a little bit more of the bracket that we, kind of break that down in a little bit more detail. We'll talk about things like the
more of that Daniel Brooks situation,
the Daniel Brooks situation, the Fastlane pay-per-view being announced, which immediately got an eye roll and a from me because I hate that name. It is what it is, but I got a theory behind that. And, everything else with the TV recap and stuff. And of course, if they change anything tonight by any means, I don't expect them to, but maybe they will. I don't know. Then we will address any changes to the card over there on the hot tags as well. Obviously, we got Collision coming up on Saturday night, so we'll have already done the hot tags before then. But we're not switching the schedule around and doing hot tags on Sunday mornings or something. So it is what it is.
Oh, we will talk about the debut Collision, though.
Yeah, we will talk about that, review that, because we hadn't seen that quite yet. And, anything else that pops up. I don't know, maybe some awesome trademark is going to show up and we're going to be like, woo, trademarks, legal stuff. But in the meantime, that's going to do us in. Thanks for listening to this, everybody. And stay tuned to those upcoming 2 podcasts. Then on the WWE side next week with Money in the Bank. And then we'll start getting into 4th of July content and some tournament stuff for Heat of the Moment and all. So just be subscribed and be staying tuned, and we'll see you then. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.